I start our sermon, let me remind those of you that took pictures of the kids as they paraded through the sanctuary, do not, under any circumstances, post those online. That is
Path
from
to
Mark
God, the many
Reed. We
ways to
call-
God. And so
we
if you
have
want to
very-
call
we
God,
want to take
if
very
there's
good care of our children and not subject them to any dangers. So for the past 2 months, we've been exploring generosity, one of the values that underpin our UU principles. Those of you who have been with us for this journey may remember the flower graphic with 6 values in the petals surrounding this love in the center. Love at the center of all we stand for. Today we're examining that connection between generosity and love. I think there are 3 different kinds of generosity. The one most of us think of first is generosity of money and resources. Without the generosity of those of you sitting here in the pews or participating on Zoom, we would not exist today. While many of the organizations that you and I support with our money have a contributor base of thousands, maybe even millions of people, and untold government or other funding entities, First UU Nashville is supported solely by us. No overarching denomination to send us dollars or bail us out when budgets are tight. No vast body of individuals who send in contributions through telethons or fund drives. It's just us. The second kind of generosity is that of time and energy. Think of all the hours of volunteering that go into lay ministry, governance, choir, social justice work, building and grounds maintenance, religious education, and all the other teams and committees where your time and energy make us thrive. We wouldn't exist as a congregation without the gifts of time you give. The third kind of generosity is one we sometimes overlook, but like the other 2, is absolutely essential for our existence. And that is generosity of spirit. I define this as an open-heartedness and open-mindedness that suspends judgment and actively works to bring about the best for others. It extends to others the willingness to help grow rather than punish or criticize for offenses or shortcomings. It recognizes the humanness of all of us and is therefore forgiving and accepting. In a community such as ours, it asks, how can I help, rather than criticizing from a distance? It is the open expression of love. I believe this third kind of generosity is the most important to our church community. It can drive the other 2. People may give their time and money for a number of reasons: habit, guilt, pressure. But when we give out of love, we are building a strong foundation, one less subject to the vagaries and vicissitudes of our lives. What does it look like, this generosity of spirit? Well, it looks like Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones when she chose to teach Roger a better way in the world instead of seeking to punish him. It looks like the woman with the gem who gave it away to someone because her heart was open. It looks like a community that resolves its differences through discussion, compromise, recognition of others' viewpoints, and genuine search for the best solution for all. A community where pledges aren't dependent on agreement with every decision or sermon. It looks like us digging deeply into our widening the circle study, listening to and supporting others as we all struggle with our own perceptions and attitudes. It looks like us asking, what can I do to help, when we hear criticism of staff, board, or committee? It looks like that dear person who, when I had to apologize for a sharp attempt to get a meeting going where I wanted it to go, she said, "It's okay, Gail, I understand." It looks like you, when you see someone struggling and you ask, do you need to be helped, heard, or hugged? And then follow through. It looks like an abundance of volunteers for room in the inn, habitat, safe haven, RE. It looks like love. So many children's stories teaching generosity seem to make it seem that gifts will magically descend upon the generous child. Scientists have found that there are real non-magical rewards for generosity. Altruistic behavior releases endorphins, those wonderful feel-good chemicals in our brains. We feel better. Generosity also seems to have positive physical effects as well on lowering our blood pressure and our stress levels. Giving, whether it's our time, money, or compassion, promotes a sense of cooperation and trust. And when we are generous, we perceive others more positively. One other non-magical thing about generosity, it spurs others to be more generous too. So how do we develop or increase our generosity of spirit? Well, since I started thinking about this, answers seem to pop up all over the place. Some I read online, some came from conversations, others were in newspaper columns, and even comic strips. Still others are the result of my own introspection. So, with grateful appreciation to Reverend Diane, David Brooks, Russell Greiger, Stephan Pastis, and my interactions with many of you, here are some suggestions. First, we can remind ourselves of the generosity extended to us by the world. We drink from wells we did not dig. We are constantly in receipt of gifts from those we don't know. Sending that back out into the world seems very fitting indeed. Then we can be more aware of the generosity extended to us by others we do know. Did someone forgive our sharpness of tone, our neglect of their needs? Did they express appreciation to us for some kindness? We can reflect on those and resolve to emulate their behavior. We can become more aware of our own behaviors and motives. When and why are we most apt to ignore, criticize, or punish? Is it when we are afraid, insecure, tired? If so, can we put those emotions aside and work to bring out the best, not only in the other person, but in ourselves as well? We can recognize that it's often easier to extend that generosity to those who are farthest removed from us. As our acquaintances grow closer and closer to our daily contacts, the human characteristics that annoy us seem to become harder and harder to accept graciously. If we remember that we have our own faults, it becomes easier to accept those of others and to pause before lashing out. One of the best ways to ingrain a behavior is to teach it, to use it, to verbalize it. Teachers will tell you the best way to learn something is to teach it. Teach it to our children and let them see it in our daily lives with them and with our partners. Improving our generosity of spirit requires practice. It's not a one-and-done behavior change. We'll falter, succeed, falter again. I recommend our covenant groups as a good way to practice in a safe environment. And you'll build lifelong relationships while you're at it. We need to be generous with ourselves, too. We're going to make mistakes. We won't give it right every time, but we can learn so that next time we'll do it better. We have been given the gift of a loving community. The ancestors of this congregation donated time, money, and a generous spirit to create this place of worship, spiritual exploration, fellowship, and service to the larger world. Our vision, adopted in June, is clearly that of a people striving to build generosity of spirit as an underlying characteristic. Listen to some of the words. We come together, accept each other without judgment. We recognize love as our strength. We build our church community by our generous gifts of time and money. We share our diverse opinions, manage conflict with mutual respect, and grow in response to new ideas. Those are lofty goals indeed. They require us to practice generosity in all its forms: resources, time, and spirit. May it be so, and may we make it so with our living.